working closely with industry to assess emerging skills needs. He has recently commissioned research in off-site skills, immersive learning and digital skills for construction. You've met Matt, and on the far side is Rudy Duncan Bosu. He's the project director at Chapman BDSP, leads the MEP team. He's passionate about the built environment and how sustainability can be incorporated into building design and operation. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to start kicking off with some questions. We have a roaming mic as well, so there will be opportunities for you in the audience as well to ask questions. If you've got a question after a particular panel member has answered theirs and you'd like to join in, please do stick your hand up. And Alex, are you okay passing around the mic? So first of all, to Marie, we're having to increasingly rely on automation for the design of buildings. Why is this?
Several reasons, I think, but primarily the design of environments. The environment is becoming more complex, but the requirements, the standards, the expectation for an evidence space, visualization is becoming a lot more prominent, and we're being faced with a number of parameters that contradict each other. So we do need this, even to drive efficiency, and our industry does suffer a lot from increased fees that are reducing over time, from what it seems. That both to drive efficiency and to enable solutions, to create solutions for conflicting or opposing or highly complex environments, we are really relying on the use of digital processes to design. We're not relying on them completely. I think there's still a human element to the whole process. But I think engineering has the advantage of having measurable parameters, whereas architecture probably arguably started parametricism in the design process and have to rely a lot more on measurable items in the design process, such as perception of beauty and adaptation and the unpredictables. So we have a big advantage in our hands, and we need to make use of it, especially for optimization purposes, as we saw in the presentations earlier on.
Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to talk about automation? Any questions on that front? Okay, I'll ask the next question to Ben. Given the wide range of tech that we've got at the moment in play and the unknowns over what will take off and why by when, how do we future-proof the workforce with the right digital skills today? So it's a key question about education.
Yeah, so as Matt mentioned in his presentation, it's all about the people really and understanding the changes that they're going through and the role that they're going to need to play. I think the point to make is we do know to some degree so the technology is being used now and some that are most likely to be used, and we're starting to train people in those, which is great and the right thing to do, but beyond that we don't know which one will necessarily take off, the greatest volume or what's coming next. The CIBSE, we've just done some research into this and what does that mean, and it's really about some underlying skills and knowledge that people need to enable them to then adapt and adapt to the digital world and digital way of working. So this is about, can you hear me okay, by the way? Yeah. This is about really two key areas that we've looked at, and one's around understanding and knowledge of certain digital technologies and what's available, but also about data and data management and the fundamentals of how to work with data and the importance of it. And on the other side, it's around the softer skills, problem solving, the creative thinking, and having that to be able to work, understand what tools you've got at your disposal and work with that to solve the problems in unique ways. Really having the combination of those two things rather than specific to particular technology and how to use particular technologies and processes, having equipped with those two things can enable you to that much more. And I'd say it's really important that we do that to make the use of technology as much as possible and turn the story into a really positive one around an opportunity, and to safeguard really around some of the risks of people being alienated by technology, and it forcing people out of the industry. I think making sure they've got those fundamental skills in place helps people to adapt to the digital world a lot more.
There's a lot of complexity in these systems through these interconnected technologies. How will we make our buildings more prone to? Will they make our buildings more prone to errors? And what's our abilities to actually manage what's going on?
I think that's a loud one. That's a really interesting point, because I think where we're seeing at the moment is an underlying fragmentation of systems. And this is where some of the inertia within the industry comes from. So what do I buy? Where do I go? What system do I invest in? How do I know it's secure? How do I know that it will be robust over the next 10 to 15 years? I did some research recently talking to some large construction companies, and one of their challenges within digital transformation is the fact that they are lumbered with some of these legacy systems that they bought into 10, 15 years ago, and they're finding it very, very difficult to move away from it. And I think we're in a time of change at the moment where there was, I can't remember the presentation just before we'd had the panel session, but there was one individual who was talking about using APIs, which are communication tools, in order to link some of these things together. So I think we'll stop seeing some of these big legacy behemoth management systems, and we'll start seeing a much more agile way where you get very lightweight pieces of software, very lightweight pieces of information, managing specific things within a building. None of these big trained systems, these specific lightweight systems, knitted together with APIs, these communication protocols, and then, dare I say it again, underlined by a distributed ledger, or underlined by a blockchain scenario, so you understand who has permissions and who has access to grant. So I think that what we will see in the near term, to answer the direct question, is more complexity coming into buildings as people fight for the space, and then we'll start seeing that complexity disappear as these underlying technologies will start.
Thank you. Any questions out there? Okay, I'll move on. Rudy, there's always here about engineers, and we need to know how we can adapt to this quickly evolving technology. Traditional building services role and design processes are changing without the framework there, appropriate frameworks. How do we fill that knowledge and skills gap?
I mean, as we've heard today, there's lots of different facets to these automation and new technologies. And I think it's down to the industry to promote what they're doing, to make it simple for users to and specifiers to understand what's out there as products, and also streamline the language so that different components of building services can sit together and connect in unity, which at the moment things are quite fragmented, things are sitting in silos. So we need a common language that we use across the industry, and then from there I think regulation and legislation is going to help to put a framework in place. It's very much like the sustainability side of things in years gone by, and how that's driven the low carbon economy. And I think automation technology needs to go some way. There needs to be some backbone from a legislative and registration point of view. And then once that's there, the building services engineers and other disciplines can buy into that whole process and really move that forward with designs. I was kind of thinking, within a design team, there's a lot of consultants that sit around the table, and I do think whilst advanced building service engineer needs to become more equipped with this emerging area, there is space for another consultant, a master system integrator or someone like that ilk that can sit across design teams and understand all the technologies in the marketplace and then bring that forward in design teams and evolving our building. So it's kind of a difficult question in terms of how you can learn these things because it's such a vast area. That's what the industry needs to help to move forward.
So I think you hear a lot about the fact that AI will take over the world and we won't need people anymore. And I don't believe that is the case at all. And I think that there are huge numbers of roles within construction, roles within infrastructure, which will not get automated out. What we have to realise with artificial intelligence is the fact that it's really there just to do a lot of the mundane tasks, and a lot of the heavy lifting tasks, and a lot of the repetitive tasks. At the moment, it's not terribly good at doing anything which is reasonably creative. That's not to say it's not impossible, but the cost of doing it is phenomenal. You know, these machines that have been developed by Google and IBM, they're not, you don't pop down to PC World and buy these pieces of kit. These are massive, massive investments. And so I think when you start looking at the really skilled stuff, the non-repetitive stuff, that is where the likes of the engineers and the architects and all that kind of thing, those roles will still be really, really important.
Thank you. Question for Mary. So when all this automation is coming upon us, it's quite complex, very complex in some cases, and it's helped us design buildings and the internal environment. How do we rely on human intervention to achieve the same result?
Pretty much. What Matt just said was that we need human intervention for some high-skill areas, for some more qualitative decision-making, etc. Perhaps, arguably, one of the biggest gaps is a huge skill gap in the market. There certainly aren't enough people out there to fulfill those design roles that use intelligence, use the software technology that's available. And it's growing fast, but arguably there's a need for government investment for reskilling of our industry to meet the demand and catch up with the pace of this culture change, because we are running, I believe we're running a little bit behind on this. And we're seeing a younger generation of people who have the skill sets, but there's a little bit of a gap with the verification and quality control, because people with the experience in the industry don't have necessarily, or there aren't enough of those people. So human intervention is required, but the skill set is not there yet. There's also public sector investment in training and re-education.
Yeah, I think I'll add to that as well. In terms of saying that, I think automation is great and we should automate as much as possible whilst giving the users the ability to tweak things rather than giving the users too much control over our built-in environment. That's it.
Yeah, just to add to that, basically, earlier in terms of common language and understanding, I think that's one of the things that's holding us back, where there's uncertainty over what skills we're talking about, what skills are needed, and are we talking about actually just getting rid of some roles, are we talking about augmenting others, are we talking about new roles? And I think in reality what happens is people think they're all doing unique different things, and they do their own training solution or skills solution, but in reality it's kind of just the same, and that just kind of waste effort and waste resources. So I think the common language is really, really key part of that, to kind of get some, as much as possible, common understanding of what we mean by the skills needs and what we mean by role and job changes. Let's get some basic agreement on that, and then put some investment into those areas. So let's go after this, and let's make sure we upskill in these certain areas. So I think that's an important role. CIBSE's got a role in that. We're looking at ways of funding into this area in the new year around developing the training. But the particular roles, and developing a definition, a competency framework, essentially, a definition across the whole built environment of what skills do we need. So it's that kind of thing I think which really help move it along.
Thank you. Question for Matt. With all this automation, how will you get buildings that are liked by humans?
They're all going to be in big glass boxes with just the most appropriate amount of glazing and no atmosphere. People aren't stupid. There's one thing we seem to be a little bit obsessed about AI at the moment, and there was a question once posed, it was on telly, and so the question was posed to an AI expert who said, "Are you worried about artificial intelligence?" He said, "No, but I'm really worried about genuine stupidity." And I don't think that we're going to be in a position where we will have these generic design choices that have all been undertaken because we have allowed artificial intelligence to actually do the job that people are most qualified to do. It just doesn't work like that. And I think that what we will find is that you will have much more effective workspaces or much more effective areas to work because the amount of data and the amount of success factors that can be crunched by some of these automated systems will enable these buildings to be better. But there will still be design choices, and there will still be engineering choices, and there will still be aesthetic choices that people will get for. And I think that having that human factor will allow our built environment to become more colourful. But having the automated input will allow that colour to actually perform much better than it is.
If AI can play a role and recognize human emotion or human facial expression, that's another data set that can be collected, human occupant expectancy. It's just more basic. So at the moment, I think the architect has to play that role in the building that are liked by humans. It's always a subjective area, but there is a huge data set there.
And I think it's really important when you start looking at building optimization of buildings and use. It's like if we can start understanding whether people are happy or sad in their work environment, whether they're talking to you loudly just by doing it through AI and this kind of remote sensing stuff, you can optimize buildings on that basis. It's spooky, it's a bit scary. We're always watching.
With this push for automation, is there a tipping point?
Well, like I said earlier, I think automation is great. Push, and give people as little input as possible. So one thing for sure is the predictability of people to do what they need to do to automate the building and maintain the environment. I think there is a tipping point for automation and technology. I think that's got to do with the social aspect of things. I mean, look at my kids now, and they're on the iPad all the time and talking to Alexa or having conversations and interacting. So I think whilst automation is great and we need to push that and make our lives simpler, that tipping point I think is where socially maybe we like interacting as much as you would have done times go by.
So I'm going on about AI again now. There's a school of thought. So there's a chap from Google who works in their AI team, and he's very concerned about this too. And he actually quit Google. He probably could do because he probably had millions of dollars anyway, but he quit Google and set up a not-for-profit foundation called 1 Billion Happy, because he was really concerned that with the prevalence of AI at the moment, which learns, and don't program it learns from experience, is that if it's taking all the information from a very divisive world, and people who are culturally unhappy or very combative or have rise of nationalism, however you want to look at that, is that if AI is learning from that, then that's a challenge, and that's where it's And so he set up this non-profit foundation called 1 Billion Happy because he wanted people to be happy, because then the AI would learn from it. And And I think that, we've talked about people and skills and cultures and all that kind of stuff, and working cultures. And it is really, really important to understand where that tipping point could happen and prepare ourselves for the fact that when it does happen, the second bit is that we are as prepared as possible in making sure that the technology we develop is of a good nature and not a bad nature.
Thank you. I think that's probably a good point to close off this discussion, unless there's a quick question from the floor from anyone. And we get the mic overhead.
I'm Charlotte from BSc Consulting. When we talk about a common language in the digital world, optimization and some fundamental skills, do you have any suggestions where we can start from?
So with digital skills more broadly, there are existing competency frameworks for other industries, which I think to a degree could be applicable in this industry, talking about what those are. I mentioned research that CIBSE just done, which sets out some basic fundamentals of that. What are those two different kind of types of competencies in terms of soft skills and knowledge of technology? So I think that's a start. What we've got through BIM is a start, and it's set out some certain skills that are needed there. So I think it's about taking what we've got already today, getting the best minds on it, and putting something together which is a good start. So it won't be perfect, it's never going to be perfect, but let's get a stake in the ground and set something out that we can all agree on and then add to it as it evolves. So yeah, short answer is yes, I think it was a start, we just need to get on with it.
Thank you. Okay, I think we'll draw that to close. I'd like to thank really Matt, Ben and Marie in the